It does look like admissions is slowing down. So I will go ahead and get started. I appreciate you being patient. My name is Stephanie Wolf, and I'm the Membership Relations Coordinator at Population Connection. I'm very excited about today's speaking event. It is the final virtual event of 2022, and I must say, I love having this platform to stay engaged with all of our wonderful supporters and having the chance to network with other like-minded organizations as well. So a big thank you to everyone who has tuned in for our virtual events over the past year. Now, with that said, support from our generous donors makes it possible for us to sponsor on-the-ground organizations such as Nasaruni Academy, which we will be hearing from today. At Nasaruni Academy, Maasai girls are provided with the opportunity to go to school. This allows them to seek out their own futures beyond the confines of child marriage and early childbearing. We are joined today by Nasaruni's Executive Director, Michelle Cude, who will share more about the school's work. Now, during the presentation today, if you have any questions you want to ask our speaker, please drop them in the Q&A box found at the bottom of your screen. Again, this is the Q&A box, not the chat box. There's a Q&A box where you can submit your questions. This makes it easier for us to see everyone's questions so nothing is missed. And we will get to those during the Q&A session, which will be facilitated by our VP for Communications, Marian Starkey. Now, that's it for me. So at this time, I'll turn it over to you, Michelle.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. And I'm really grateful myself for all these people who have joined us today. And it's going to be a really great opportunity for us to learn a little bit about what's going on in a small corner of the world over in Kenya. And so thanks for being here today. And a big thank you to Population Connection. A lot of what we do, we couldn't do without the support from Population Connection. So we're extremely grateful. You're helping us sustain our work and specifically helping our teachers. And so I'm really excited to be here today. And I hope all of you will have an opportunity to participate in this by asking questions and putting those in the question and answer place. And hopefully sometime I'll be able to connect with you in another place. So, all right, without further ado, then I'll go ahead and get started. Again, my name is Michelle Cude, and I am actually a professor, a teacher, and on the side, I'm an executive director for Nasaruni Academy and also chair of the Nasaruni Education Foundation here in the U.S. But I'm also the narrator of this story. I'm certainly not the main character. This is a story that really revolves around Alice and her dream, and so we're going to hear more about that. So I'll go ahead and let you know that I'm interested to serve you chai if I could, you know, that in true Kenyan hospitality, we would be sitting around and enjoying a cup of chai together. So I hope all of you have your cup of chai with you right now, and you can relax and then do add questions and then be in touch. There's my contact information. I think you'll get that at the end as well. So I'm really grateful also, by the way, for Lindsay Bailey. If you don't know, Lindsay was our first contact with Population Connection, and she introduced us to Population Connection. And through Lindsay, all of this has come to be. And Lindsay now sits on our advisory board. So it could be possible that some of you in watching these slides and hearing today about our presentation, you might be inspired to play a greater role. And I'd really love to hear that as well. We're always looking for new and fresh blood on our boards, and also just people who spread the word about the work that's going on in Nasaruni Academy. So now, know this, that I am a teacher and I don't normally lecture. So this is a bit of a constrained way of trying to teach today. So I'd really like to engage with your comments. We'll do a couple of polls throughout this time so that you have a chance to engage a little bit. But just know that my heart is to get to know you and to share this with you. And hopefully this is just the beginning of getting to know each other. So the heart of Nasaruni is really our girls. This is why Alice had a dream, and this is why I got involved. So I want you first and foremost to meet some of the girls. I wish I could introduce you to all of them. In a small little corner of Kenya, Narok is a rural community. Narok itself is on the way to Maasai Mara Game Reserve. So we're on a tarmac, a paved road, which goes from Nairobi down to the southern part of Kenya where the game reserve is. And so many travelers come through and stop in Narok. Our school is about 5 miles outside of Narok and down a very difficult road to get to our school itself off of the tarmac. But the girls live at the school. So the girls range in age from about 4 years old all the way up till they're about 16 at this point. There might be a few 16-year-olds now. And Nasaruni, as I said, is a boarding school. So other than the very youngest ones who are in the pre-primary grades, those girls walk to school. But other than them, the rest of them all board at our school. You'll hear more about the challenges that their long walk would entail, possible dangers with wild animals and other things. So a boarding school is a necessity in Kenya, in the rural areas. So here's another picture showing you that these girls really do live there, and they have all kinds of life experiences there together. We were planting a garden. This is her name is Sally, and those are some skumawiki seedlings that we're trying to plant in a garden. So the girls get the experience of really learning agriculture and learning how to tend to crops. And so it's part of their training, their life skills training that we do. Here are some of the high school students. One of the things that visitors who come to Nasaruni really comment on is that the girls have just this sense of joy. And that's one of the things that I think makes it so special, Nasaruni. The girls themselves have very little. They come mostly from extremely impoverished communities. And yet it seems that their poverty does not stand in the way. And as little as they actually own personally, they are just full of so much joy and happiness, and they're so overjoyed to be there. They really appreciate being able to go to school. And that really strikes the American students who talk with them or who are able to go over there. It's interesting to see them appreciate how much those girls love being at school. So that's kind of special. Even the relationships between the older students and the younger students, you see how the older student's hand is over the other one. I think that's another special aspect of our school, similar to the way that they grow up in their homes with children. You know, it's not uncommon to have a dozen children who are range in a lot of different ages, right? And there's multiple wives, often living in the same boma or little village. And so the children all grow up together. And so here at Nasaruni, I think it's beautiful that Moses, who's the director of the school, really encourages the girls, the older girls, to take one of the younger girls on and sort of mentor her. And you just see this natural kind of relationship forming between the older girls and the younger ones, and they're often sitting in their lap. And so it's just it does feel like a family. I think that's another piece of the special part that Nasaruni has and the role it plays in their lives. So you can see these aren't even really posed. This is just their general way that they're smiling and happy. So this is where the magic happens, at the school itself. And this is Alice, the one who started it all. So Alice's story is very important. In order to understand what we do at Nasaruni, you need to understand who Alice is and her role and her dream. So Alice's dream actually started when she was a little girl, and she was about the 12th child in the family. And her older brothers let her kind of tag along with her to school, with them to school. And she really enjoyed school and begged her mom to be able to allow her to go to school. And so I think originally the mother really kind of had to do this without the father knowing. But then eventually, she really had to intercede for the right for Alice to go to school with her husband. So Alice credits her mom as really being the one who had the strength of character to go against the cultural tradition, which would have tied Alice to the home, which would have kept her home just learning, having an education, but in simply how to keep a house and how to build a house and the things she would need to know as a mother, and then be married off maybe when she's 13 or 14 years old. So Alice's mother really stopped that from happening. And I think you'll hear a little bit about that in a video. But I had the pleasure of meeting Alice's mother, who was around 100 years old. They weren't actually sure how old she was because they don't have birth records, but they think she was about 100 years old before she passed away. And it was just precious to see through her eyes what had happened, because she was strong enough to really resist that pressure to allow her daughter to be married off, and instead give her daughter the opportunity for an education. And now hundreds of girls are getting an education just because of Alice. So it's a powerful legacy. There are so many mothers with so many children now out in the villages, and the ones who were educated themselves will educate their children, the research tells us. So the story begins with Alice then, after she grows up and becomes a teacher, and she decides to come to the US on an exchange program called ILEP, which actually works through the State Department and IREX. And so Alice was a member of the ILEP group who came over in 2011. And then as a member of our class, she joined our class. I teach these pre-service social studies teachers. So all of these young men and women are going to become history or geography teachers. And so Alice joined our class for the semester while she was at the university. And so we really embraced her story, and I invited her over to the house for dinner and found out that she had, young children at home that she was missing. And so we sort of just became friends. And then eventually she shared her vision with me of how she herself wanted to enable the girls in her home community to have a place to go to school. And so that vision really struck me, and my heart really was moved to find a way that we could support her in that. We shared it with the class, and those students actually were the first ones to start raising money so we could buy the land that she needed to build this school. So that was the beginning back in 2011, and you'll see where it's come since then. Here's a little timeline so you can see kind of the progress that we purchased the land in 2012. And then you see the second box shows you the corrugated steel buildings that we used to build a temporary structure, basically. Prior to this, the girls, 13 of them, actually went to school under a tree. And that tree is still on the Nasaruni property. And I vow that tree must never be cut down because it's a very special memorial to the beginning, the grassroots beginning of our school. So those students moved from the tree into their first classroom, and then gradually it grew to have 2 classes. And we were enabled by a donor to purchase a van that would then go around and pick up some of the children who were not able to walk so far. So Nasaruni began growing year after year. On the lower left, you see water. That's a very large borehole driller, and the ground in front is covered with water. At that point, we had just struck water, but they did have to drill 600 feet before they struck water. But we are blessed because the water at our school is actually not very salinated. In other wells nearby and boreholes, they suffer from having a high salination rate in the water, so it's too salty. But ours does not have that problem. It does have a little extra fluoride than it should, but that's something we're working on. So we're blessed to have water. In this semi-arid region in Kenya, it's really important to have your source of water. And then because the girls were coming from so far and we wanted the school to grow and provide a real safe haven for them, the word Nasaruni actually means haven. And it came from that first meeting with Alice. My farm here in Virginia is called Haven Hill Farm. And so at that moment, Alice and I were brainstorming what would we call the school. And we talked about the word haven, and she figured out what it was in Maasai, which is their language. And Nasaruni then became the name of our school. We wanted it to be a safe haven for those girls. So you can see in the middle of the bottom row, there's a new dormitory opening for those girls. And then just before the dining hall, I want you to see, I'm going to share an early video, the very first one we made, where Alice herself will talk with you, and you can sort of meet her. And you'll see she's going to tell you a bit of the background of why we need a school in Kenya. And so she'll share that with you. And then you'll see her kind of dreaming of the next steps.
Hello, my name is Alice Sayo, founder, director of Nasaruni Academy for Maasai girls, Narok, Kenya. I know Americans are busy people, but I'll go straight to the point. In this short video, I'm going to share with you 5 reasons why girls need an opportunity to go to school at Nasaruni Academy. 1. There is no other school in the area. Each one of these girls would have to walk over an hour or 2 to get to a public school. And for young children, especially girls, walking is dangerous because of wild animals. 2. An alternative to early marriage. Maasai girls are traditionally married off by their fathers by ages 10 to 12 in exchange for a bride price of some cows. Their future then becomes manual labor of collecting firewood, house chores, and endless childbearing. 3. The power of literacy. In their day-to-day life, they need this literacy to fit into a changing society. Not only do they learn how to read and write themselves, they can help their parents by reading prescriptions, contracts, news, etc. 4. Nasaruni Academy teaches girls to develop marketable skills such as beadwork, tailoring, and gardening, thus preserving their cultural heritage. 5. Nasaruni Academy empowers our girls to be problem solvers and to give back to their community. Education helps build within them critical thinking, pride, and confidence to solve problems rather than develop a defeatist attitude. So, these are just 5 of the many benefits. But let me be frank. we have many needs which must be met in order to reap the benefits.
1. Permanent classrooms. Currently, the girls only have temporary tin classrooms.
2.
Clean well water. The school and community has to buy drinking water because the only other sources are not safe for drinking.
3.
Textbooks. The girls simply do not have enough and are forced to share.
4.
Super big screen TV.
Wait a minute, who put that there? We don't need a super TV, big screen. We don't even have electricity. But what we do need is a dining hall.
5.
Teachers' houses. Teachers need housing at the school in order to oversee the boarding and care for the girls. Of course, there are many more needs at the academy, but the girls and teachers are a resilient group. With their
All right. So here is the dining hall that Alice was wishing for. So you can see that that video was early on in our story. And it's incredible the gifts that have come from donors. And really, it's a lot of people giving a little of their extra. And we put it all together and we're able to do some pretty amazing things. There's a organization or a group of empty bowls, and that's a way that we have fundraised in the past, where potters have donated bowls and people come, and the community has donated soup, and so people come and it's a big community event. We sell t-shirts. Some of my students still sell t-shirts for this. And at one point, one of our friends of Nasaruni made a walk down part of the Appalachian Trail and got sponsors. And he raised over $20,000, Frank Sprinkle, to build another dormitory when we outgrew the first one. So many people have enabled this, this magic to keep growing at Nasaruni. So you see the dining hall there, and then here are the permanent classrooms that Alice was asking for. So these are for the primary school, and the primary school consists of the pre-primary or like the preschool level, and then class 1 through 8. And so they call them a class rather than a grade, but it's kind of shifting now. So here are in progress, some of the building going on. And then here they are finished. So this happens on the top to be the intake day when girls are being brought to school by their parents. And so you can see some of the support from the community. It's very definitely a family place where the parents walk or hire transportation of some sort to bring their children to school, their daughters to school. Even in this picture on the right, you can see one of the fathers. So if you're familiar with cultural practice, for a father to be supporting his daughter's education is a pretty phenomenal change in cultural patterns. So we're seeing more and more of this around as we've been there for almost 10 years. Moses has reported that the attitudes are really changing, and people are beginning to see the benefits of educating their daughters. And this has really been an important piece of our community transformation. So Nasaruni is pledged to work through education to transform the community, and yet also very much committed to keeping all of the cultural practices that are positive, that are Maasai. So you see the woman in the center and on the left of your screen, they wear many heavy beadwork. So beadwork is something that we're teaching at the school. Girls do engage in some of those traditional arts and crafts, the dancing, We do incorporate some of the folk tales and stories. So we try very hard to keep the culture of the Maasai alive. And the school itself is very supportive of Maasai culture, which is not true of the public schools. So parents feel more comfortable to bring their children. All right, let's try this video.
All right, thank you, everyone. All right, we'll jump back in.
Hello, my name is Feya. I am 12 years old. I live in Narok County, Kenya with my family. Each morning after I wash my face and prepare for school, I take porridge with my younger sister Solopian, who comes to school with me. Mama say, I'm a bit forgetful because I sometimes forget my bag. It's a long walk to school, but not nearly as far as the public school, which will take almost 2 hours to get there.
Pei and her sister are enjoying a good education, an education that provides her hope and lets her dream a little about what her future holds. However, she is an exception, for this is not the norm for girls her age in this region, and it certainly was not the story for her mom. Pei's mother's hopes are high because unlike when she grew up, Pei is going to school. Once married, all hopes for an education are gone. Life becomes endless labor, cutting wood, carrying water, childbirth, and care of young children. This was the expected cultural pattern that Pei would have followed.
All my sisters were married at the age of 10 and 12, early marriage. According to the Maasai community, every girl, it was compulsory, must get a husband, and this is chosen by the father. You had no opportunity to choose for yourself a husband or a life partner. And in this case, my father had a tradition of giving his daughters to old men, even older than him. Most of my friends had dropped out of school and were married off at an early age, 12, 15. It was not easy for someone to reach 15, 16 years.
Early marriage traps girls in a never-ending cycle of poverty and hopelessness. The tragic reality is that when girls marry early, often to an older man they have never met, they bear children early, which puts their lives at a significant risk. It's one of the leading causes of death for girls aged 15 to 19 in low and middle-income countries.
We, the Maasai, cherish cows, sheep, and goats, and we like to see them grazing as we pass on our way to school.
Traditionally nomadic people, the Maasai face other challenges with the dividing up of the lands into private sectors. Now, grazing becomes difficult. Drought adds further concern as the cows cannot find enough pasture. Since cows are the main source of income for the families, they often cannot pay school fees, and so the children are taken from the school. What if a girl's life could be more than this? What if a mother's dreams could be realized for her daughter? What if girls had choices and could write their own stories of their lives? What if?
The passion started long time ago, right from high school. But I felt if I could be a teacher, I will be able to change lives. I'll be able to transform lives. I'll be able to convince my Maasai community who are not yet understanding the value and the benefit of taking girls to school. The burden that is in my heart is about the Maasai girls. Having grown up in that environment, having seen the plight of the Maasai girl. And so I thought if we could have a boarding school where these girls could spend more time in school, then they will not have any challenges of temptations and all that. So this is where the vision came about, Nasaruni School for the Maasai girls.
So the birth of Alice's vision meant the possible fulfillment of a dream for girls like Pei and her mother.
My favorite thing about going to school is playing and learning. My favorite subject is science. The teachers are wonderful, but especially Mr. Rotich because I love how he teaches us about plants and animals. Someday I want to graduate from Nasaruni Academy and go to secondary school. When I grow up, I want to be a lawyer to help the Maasai girls to know their rights and help the entire community.
At Nasaruni Academy, the community and the school work together to find new solutions to keep the girls in school. For instance, a new well was just drilled at Nasaruni which will supply water for the entire surrounding community. And the dormitory allows many more girls to get the chance that Pei has, to come from far distances and get a chance to excel in their studies, to aspire to become lawyers, artists, writers, teachers, nurses. In short, receive an education, good nutrition, balanced with job training and sport in a nurturing environment. Alice's vision at Nasaruni Academy, which is fulfilling the hopes and dreams of Pei, her sister, and her mother, are being made possible because people like you are wanting to see more stories like Pei. The dream is as simple to fulfill as you making sure more girls like Pei can pick up a book bag to go to school. But it's as big a dream as seeing more Alices empower more Kenyan girls from generation to generation.
There we go. And now what you see on the right is the Pei who's grown up. So if you can see that picture, that's Pei coming back to visit the Nasaruni family and inspire the girls who are there to continue with their studies. And so this is part of a summit meeting, a girls empowerment summit, where the girls were able to come and learn during the pandemic when schools were closed. And at this Girls Empowerment Summit, this is a place where we are instilling, in addition to the school, the values of resilience and the ways that Nasaruni helps to build within the girls their voices and enable them to feel compelled and able to express their voices and to be valued. So I think we haven't time to see all the rest, but maybe I'll just go through the slides quickly so we can build all the way up to the present day. Nasaruni has begun to add a high school now. So we have high school girls, about 100 high school girls now. And this is a current picture, in addition to around 100 in the primary school. So this is an image of all the buildings, just dedicated a new library and administration wing. So just a quick little synopsis then of how Nasaruni is helping girls find their voice by giving them life skills like agriculture and the power of literacy. These two girls came to escape early marriage, but then we always go back and get permission from their fathers. So we are a school that really supports the cultural values and the family connections. So no one is at Nasaruni who doesn't have their father's permission to be there. And then we try to find ways to help those girls who are more impoverished than others by donating their supplies, their personal hygiene supplies, rewarding their hard work and empowering them, building resiliency, and helping them to have the power to dream. So the girls at Nasaruni now have a power to dream. And I think that's inspiring. I leave you with the last vision of a young girl named Sanante, who is the image of what Nasaruni is all about. There's Sanante when we found her out in the rural area tending to some goats, and asked her father if we could bring her to school, and he allowed. And now Sanante in the upper right corner She's now about 18 years old and at another school and thriving. So this is the story of Nasaruni Academy. And I want to thank you so much and turn it over maybe now so that we can have some questions from all of you. And I guess maybe I'll let Marion to take control then. And should I stop sharing now?
Yeah, you can stop sharing.
Okay.
Thank you for that wonderful presentation. I kept being worried that the slides were about to end and you were going to switch over to me because I was tearing up multiple different times through the presentation. I was like, oh, not now, please. That was beautiful. We've got a couple, well, so you just showed a picture of Pai all grown up, and that that speaks to a couple of questions that people had around what the outcomes have been for some of the girls who've graduated from the school. Like, has it been open long enough for you to see what kind of a change this has made in girls' lives?
That's a wonderful set of questions. Unfortunately, we don't have any outcomes yet because they are only, like, Pai is the first class, and so she's still in high school. So she's going to a national high school, which means she scored well enough on the final exams, the national exams, as did several of the girls. So our test results have shown that the nurturing environment and the small class size and just the way of Nasaruni and the family feel and the strong emphasis we place on the holistic child, all of this is paying off. They're exceeding the neighboring schools or anyone else in the region in many ways. I think we were number 6 in the whole county or something the last time. So we're doing really, really well. But no one has yet graduated high school. So we're not quite sure. This story is still open. We don't have an ending yet. And we will continue this story of Nasaruni as more and more lives. And we're also, we're actually growing the vision to stretch to a network of other schools, and they will join us as Nasaruni Network schools. And we're trying to work on libraries and water projects there too. So everybody,
that was going to be my next question. Whether this school had inspired other schools to be founded or to sort of change their curricula. Yeah.
Indeed. And teacher training is actually our next step, and we will have teacher training seminars at Nasaruni for the surrounding Nasaruni network schools and actually some of the public schools as well, allowing those teachers all to come to Nasaruni and live there for a week and be able to, in a holiday period, be able to get some extra teacher training. So that's our next goal.
Really cool. I guess similar to that, I'm wondering whether the families that have sent their girls to school, like, have they influenced other families in their communities or maybe in surrounding communities to realize that they should send their girls to school too, or that they can still make do with their girls in school rather than tending the livestock and gathering water and things like that?
Absolutely. And actually, Pai's father is one of the strongest advocates. He speaks no English, was not schooled at all. However, he has just such a heart now for what the school has been doing for his daughters. Pai's younger sister, you saw in the video, she's now in high school. So I saw him this past summer when I was there. And he came and looked for me, and he's like, Pai needs to go to university. Of course it was.
Yeah, how far away is the nearest university? Is it in like Nairobi, or is there something closer?
Actually, there's a university, Maasai Mara University is in Narok.
Oh, wow.
So there's a very close by university.
From which communities does the university typically pull? I mean, if you haven't had any kids graduate from the high school here yet, where are the feeder schools?
Isn't that ironic? Because this is the university which was planted about 7 or 8 years ago by the Nairobi University. So then they started regional universities. Maasai Mara University has only about 3% Maasai, though it is housed in the center of Maasai land. So that explains why there aren't really a lot of role models for these girls yet. And if you ask them what they want to be, like, it's hard to envision Maasai doing things like being a doctor, being a pilot, a lawyer. These are the things that that they're starting to pick up on and dream. In many cases, they'll, especially a woman, be the first ones, you know, to do that. So even our teachers, we have a few Maasai teachers, but not many. So truly, we're beginning to see the beginning of this cultural change. And as Pei's father has spread word to others, and fathers are beginning to come and inquire, they all come and they come to see the school and check it out first. So I see them come. I lived there for a year, several years ago, and I was able to, you know, participate in the day-to-day. And I saw fathers come and check out the school to see, you know, with their own eyes, whether this was a positive thing for their daughters. And so right now, the biggest impediment is really funds. It's the drought and the long impact from the pandemic, that we're really seeing a lot of issues of climate change. And so it's the economic situation that's the most challenging, even more so than the cultural issues.
Yeah, that must be an area that gets a lot of its income from tourism, right? From safaris in that area. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the first time that I visited Kenya, I went to a Maasai community, I think probably very near where the school is. And a lot of people were, employed sort of in the safari industry in some way or another.
Right. Right.
So one of the things, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, that's one of the things that we are starting to work with for job training is hospitality. And we started a little safari camp there on site where girls can learn how to make beds and serve guests. And a lot of when we go over there, it's really an advantage for the girls there to practice their English. And so their English is getting better and better, and they have an incentive to practice English so they can engage with the students that I bring over there. So they really want to. So they find it's more compelling to practice their English that way.
One of the things that I read on the website was that a clinic is sort of the next big item that the school is trying to fund. And I'm wondering what types of services that clinic would offer. I mean, would it be family planning services? Would it have any sort of, I don't know, education around female genital cutting, which I know is really prevalent among the Maasai community? What sorts of services would be acceptable, I guess, at a clinic in that region?
Exactly. Well, those are some of the questions that I leave to the doctor over there and to the local group that Moses has gathered, who will form a community-based organization who will be in charge of the clinic. And so it will all be locally run and managed. And just like the school, there's a community-based organization in Kenya and a board in Kenya. So these things are all just, they're run by the local people. Maasai really have gathered around Moses in support of the school now. And many of them, in fact, are the ones who asked for a clinic. And so this is in response to what the community has asked. So the clinic will serve both the girls and the community, but what it will look like exactly, we don't know yet. I don't know yet.
I think that's a really important distinction that you make, though, because I know that sometimes people just assume that, foreign aid, especially that goes to, developing countries for global health projects, is sort of, the West foisting its ideas on the countries that are receiving those funds, when in fact, usually those clinics are run by local people, and the funds are requested by them. So I think that that's really important to note.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's true of the
Let's see.
entire school, the entire
Yeah.
idea. It's all a grassroots effort from Alice. So
Mhm.
I'm just honored to be able to help in some small ways, just to put the bricks together and
Yeah.
make the bricks, make it happen.
Okay, let me just read down. We've only got 5 minutes left. We have a bunch of questions. What do I want to ask? Well, okay, so there are a couple of questions about how you incorporate Maasai culture into the lessons there, and whether there has been any pushback to sort of the Western style uniforms the students are wearing. If you want to talk about that a little bit, maybe.
Sure. Actually, the girls love the uniforms, and I myself was kind of like, why would we want to put them in uniforms that look Western? But it's in the mind of the Kenyans, that's what a school looks like. So if you remember, they were a British colony, and so some of those things have a strong hold in how they still envision a serious school should look. So I let Moses make those decisions.
Yeah.
So that's why we have that. But we do allow and encourage them to dress in their traditional clothes whenever there's special ceremonies, whenever like for graduations, for special parent weekends, and when visitors come. And they love to be able to dance and perform and show off their skills and tell stories. And last time they did a little drama. So we really support the cultural side as much as possible. And as I say, the beadwork, the storytelling, definitely the values. The school itself is based on 9 values, which were chosen by the community themselves. So we enabled the community to gather, and they brainstormed values that they wanted their daughters to have when they graduate from this school. And this was way back when we were starting Nasaruni. And the community themselves then, after they brainstormed, we got it down to a couple of big poster size, and then they voted. And so the 9 values that were chosen as from them especially. So this is their school, those are their values. So it's a values-driven school.
Have you talked to any of the students about their sort of like their hopes for the future? And do you get the sense that getting an education has changed what those hopes and dreams might have been had they not gotten an education?
What I've noticed in my years of going is that they now have dreams. Like, it's pretty common, and probably most of you would turn around and ask a child that you meet, like, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a kind of a common thing. And kids have dreams, and they have, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be an astrophysicist, or whatever. But I would ask the girls there, and they didn't know, and they didn't have any dreams. They didn't have an idea of what was possible other than being a mother. And so their world has really opened up. And now they will actually say different things. There came a time when they really said pilot, teacher, lawyer, and doctor. There were those 4, and they must have been the ones the teachers kind of brainstormed and told them. So they picked out of those 4. But now they actually have more. And so I've seen this progression as they've begun to get older also, and begin to learn that they have the power to dream and choose. So it's beautiful.
Well, yeah. And I wonder, what are they exposed to in terms of the rest of the world? Like it said in the video that there was no electricity at the school, but do they have cell phones? Are they connected to the internet through cell service?
We now have electricity.
Oh, okay.
And we now have internet. And so they are starting to go on the internet and do work on the internet too. So their exposure to the world and the various groups that we've been going over, and we do virtual exchange with them when they're on the computers there, and then a class of students here can exchange with them. So we're starting to do all kinds of ways that that we're able to kind of open their eyes to the world even more. And Moses is very excited about that. That's one of the benefits he sees of our connection, to be able to have the girls develop that more global vision.
Well, and to that point, and we'll wrap up after this. Are you guys still running the book drive that I read about on the website? There was like a link to an Amazon wish list.
We are always, and every time we go, we take as many books as we can put in our extra suitcases. So, and we've just built a big library now, so we need to fill it with books.
So you would welcome donations from people on this call. Okay, I'll put the link in the chat. I think I'll turn it back over to Stephanie because we're at 3 o'clock and I think she probably just wants to close out with a couple of words, but thank you so much. That was a really inspiring presentation. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. I am so glad we were able to have you on today and learn more about Nasaruni. I will follow up next week with a wrap-up email. We will provide written answers to any questions we didn't get to in the meantime. And also include a link to the recording. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Special thank you to Michelle. Glad we can have you on the call. And I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye now.